In this session, I'll show you how I created an avatar, the GroomTech Bear, using ChatGPT, and then refined it with some additional tools. For those of you following along and possibly creating your own avatar, keep in mind that not every step I show will necessarily apply to your process. Let's have a look. I used ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas for a mascot, and it suggested a bear, which instantly sounded perfect. So, I asked it to create one, and just like that, it generated the GroomTech Bear. I only had a brief conversation with ChatGPT, and surprisingly, on the very first try, I got something I thought was great. The next hurdle was turning the image into a vector, so I could animate each individual part as needed. And once again, I have to disclaim, I'm not sponsored, but I'll be using Vectorizer.io again, a tool we've used in previous sessions. The reason I'm using it this time is to showcase one last feature that makes it perfect for this task. As you might know, a vector image isn't made of pixels like regular images. Instead, it's built using mathematical paths that define shapes, lines, and colors. However, there's a catch. If you take a complex, colorful image and turn it into a vector, it can result in hundreds of tiny individual parts, making it really hard to manage. This is where Vectorizer.io shines. When you upload a picture, it lets you limit the number of colors and adjust the brightness levels. By doing this, it simplifies the image, reducing the number of vector paths and cleaning everything up, making it much easier to animate later. I decided to go with 7 colors for the vector. If you're working on your own avatar, I'd recommend sticking to less than 10 colors. This helps keep the design clean and makes it easier to manage when animating. For those of you who aren't creating your own and just want to move forward with the GroomTech Bear, don't worry. All the assets you need are available in the materials. All right, let's head into PowerPoint, and I'll briefly explain what I did next. On the left side, we see the original image generated by ChatGPT, and on the right, we have the vector version with only 7 different colors. The vector image was then converted into shapes found under the Graphics Format tab in PowerPoint. On slide 2, I've placed the vector image twice, and in the selection pane, you'll notice that each color has essentially been turned into its own group. Although Vectorizer.io indicated there were 7 colors, it seems that one of those colors was grouped together by Vectorizer and then split into 2 separate colors in PowerPoint, resulting in 8 colors in total. As we can see, there are 8 groupings for each image in PowerPoint. But at this point, it's easier to just show you what I mean. Let me hide each color one by one in the selection pane, so you can see how the image is broken down into its individual colors. What you're seeing now is essentially what I ended up with. But before I could start animating, I had to group the arms, legs, torso, tail, and head into individual pieces. On slide 3, you can see how I had to ungroup and then regroup each section of the body to make them separate, movable parts for the animation. I did that for each of the pieces, but when it came to the outline, I ran into an issue. Since the outline was one continuous shape, I couldn't separate it into individual parts within PowerPoint. To fix this, I had to bring the outline into Photoshop, carefully cut out each piece, and then save them individually as vector shapes. Nothing fancy, really. I just used the lasso tool, shortcut L, drew a line around each piece, deleted the rest of the bear, and saved each piece one by one. Again, one of those moments where you need to be agile and think outside the box to get the job done. On slide 4, we can see the result. Each individual body part separated and ready for animation. Now, every part of the bear, from the arms and legs to the torso, tail, and head, can be animated independently, giving us full control over the final animation. And on slide 5, you can see how I merge the outline with the inner layers of the bear. This way, every body part now has both its fill color and outline grouped together, making it easier to animate smooth, cohesive movements. Slide 6 shows the result of coloring both the inner and outer layers white. Slide 7 is the combined version, which we'll use to create our white GIF. Slides 8 and 9 are identical to slides 6 and 7, but with the colors switched to brown, giving us both versions needed for our GIF set. And there we have it. In the next session, we'll bring all the elements together and finally breathe life into the Groom Tech Bear through animation. See you there.